All right. Well, I am super excited because we're going to be talking about, I think, some timely things like um, how do you manage some of the changes with shipping and all the things going on there, and then the everlasting debate that I swear has been around longer than I've been in this business, and is it too late to get into the game? So I'm excited to have my good friend here, Sharon Even from Amazon Alpha Coaching. So, Sharon, thank you for coming on the Maximizing E-commerce podcast.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, so you were a speaker at the last two summits that I hosted, the PPC Mastery Summit and the E-commerce Business Builder Summit. I had good feedback on both of your sessions there. So super excited to get into this topic because I think you bring an interesting angle into understanding this business. So can you just kind of help everybody get a little bit of context, who you are and how you got into this world?
Okay, cool. First of all, thank you so much for bringing me on. I really appreciate being here. Second of all, my name is Sharon Even. I originally was born and raised in New Zealand, but I live in Israel. And why is that relevant? It's because I was born into an entrepreneurial household as a child. To immigrants. My parents moved from Israel to New Zealand, and my father had a really heavy Israeli accent. So all of his negotiations and anything that he needed done, he taught me at the time, his 10-year-old, how to do everything. So I did all of Dad's phone calls, all of that. I was given the book Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was 12.
Wow.
And all of that really leads up to who I am today. My foundation is not the same as most entrepreneurs. Most entrepreneurs, I don't think, were as blessed and lucky as I was to be forced into this kind of, it's not that I hated this stuff when I was a child, but I had a really good foundation, which led me eventually into e-commerce. I see you're waiting to ask something, so I'm going to let you ask it before.
No. I'm just absorbing. Go ahead.
Yeah. So my parents divorced when I was 15, which led me to end up being in New Zealand alone. And that is when I started my first e-commerce journey. This is 17 years ago. I started selling on Trade Me, which is like the eBay of New Zealand. Trade Me was probably like 5 or so years old when I started selling on it. I would import sunglasses into New Zealand, and that's basically what got me through high school. I had no help from my family, but what I did have was an amazing foundation because I came from a household where, like I said, I was forced to read entrepreneurial books. Basically everything my dad felt that the New Zealand school system wasn't going to really teach me, my dad would really make me learn. And I got into Amazon in 2016. Between the age of 15 and the age of 26, I had lots of ups and downs business-wise. I had an online store in Israel, and I've sold in many different marketplaces. 2016 is when I discovered Amazon.
Okay. Wow. So that's interesting. So that's quite the path that you were doing negotiations at like 10 for your dad, and he's having you read Rich Dad Poor Dad. So do you think that has helped you? It's kind of like, some people have like that lemonade stand story, but you have the negotiating with suppliers story.
Oh, that's not even like the tiniest bit. I could tell you so many stories that I think that my dad is probably at least 70% of the reason I am where I am today. Not because he helped me, because the minute I left home, he said to me, "You're out on your own." And that was when I was 15. So wow. Not because he helped me like financially or anything, just because he, like as a kid, like when I say the word forced, I had to learn 2 new words from the dictionary every single day, because I came from a household that we spoke 2 languages. At home, we spoke in Hebrew. Out of the house, we spoke in English. And my dad always said that I'll end up having not perfect English and not perfect Hebrew, So he would force me to learn 2 new words from both dictionaries every day. That's not a normal thing that happens in normal households.
So did you have to like come report to him? Okay, so
Yeah.
today's word is
Every
perplexed,
Saturday,
or...
he would open up my little book. I had a book, a dictionary book, and he would ask me, so what does this word mean? And what does this word mean? And I would have to, you know, from a really young age, I would learn really big words that most people at that age didn't really know. I was taught how to negotiate at a really, you know, a really, really young age. I was taught how to flip at a really young age. This is like back in the days when you'd buy stuff, you know, you'd see something in a newspaper and you'd go and you'd buy the TV, and then dad would fix it up and then sell it, and cars and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, wow.
And my dad had a jewelry factory, and then they had a catering business. So I think that my childhood had a huge impact and really gave me the tools I needed to then start life as a 15-year-old in a country alone, because when my parents divorced, they each went to a different country. And it made me the kick-ass chick that I am today.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let's not skim over this. So
yeah.
They got a divorce, and it wasn't like one went to one house and one went to the other house, and you had to kind of pick between the two, or the legal system decided where you were going to go. It was, we're going elsewhere, and you're on your own in New Zealand by yourself because they went to other countries. Did I understand?
I wish it was
right?
that easy. It was
wow.
mom. So I have 2. Well, today I have 4 younger siblings, but I had my brother passed away 5 years ago, but I had a severely disabled brother. So when my parents divorced, my mom went back to Israel. And she took me, myself, my sister, and my brother. But I'd always come with her, you know, in knowing that I'm just helping her with the flight, because it takes 2 days from New Zealand to Israel. And then I was supposed to go back to live with my dad, which I did. And then I said to dad, hey, I don't want to live in Australia. Dad moved to Australia. I want to go back to New Zealand. I'll be fine. If you would have known me at the age of 15, I wasn't that different from how I am today. So, you know, I've got a lot more life experience today. I've gone through a lot of ups and downs, but I was already like a survivor and very, you know, kick-ass at a very young age. And I use that word, really, it's my dad's word. Like dad would always tell me, kick serious ass. You know, I was put into Muay Thai kickboxing, and my dad basically always wanted to have like a son. And I was basically that. So, and then dad let me come back to New Zealand. He said, but if you're going to New Zealand, I'm not going to help you. You have to make it on your own. If you live out here, I'll take care of everything. But if you go back to New Zealand, I said, don't worry. Never asked for any help with anything, made it through, finished school, had my own business. But by the time I was 18, I was already had my private label sunglasses business, going to expeditions. So yeah, that's how it was. It's how it went down.
Wow, that is crazy. That's crazy. So before we unpack some of that real quick, I just want to give a quick little timing note. So for whatever reason, it seems like anytime I go to record these things, inevitably the lawn care people show up. So if my microphone's picking up a lawnmower or a blower in the background, I apologize. But yeah, so, okay. So you were in a situation where you're kind of like your back was up against the wall, and you had to figure out money and things like that. And so a lot of people would have said, all right, maybe I'll go get a job at McDonald's or the Gap or something like that.
I did work after school. So after school, I worked as a, it's a barista in English, a barista at McCafe. So I went to school. Well, in my reports, it wouldn't say I went to school a lot, but I finished school with good grades. I just wasn't at school a lot. And I, after school, would work at McCafe and then come back home and send out all my sunglasses orders. I did that for about 2 years. And then I left McCafe entirely and then just had my sunglasses business. That's what I did.
So how did you come up with the idea to like private label sunglasses essentially? Because that wasn't something people were talking about. And you were doing this on Trade Me, not Amazon. So like was there a big Trade Me community? Like there's kind of developed to be this Amazon community nowadays?
No, I don't know what Trade Me is like in New Zealand today, but Trade Me like back in the day, this is a long time ago. This is like 15, 16 years ago. It's a long time ago. Trade Me was like the eBay of New Zealand, and that's where you sold stuff. I don't remember how I got into Trade Me, but I know why I started with sunglasses. And it was because as a child, you're going to hear me talk a lot about my dad. It's just the impact that he had on me. But as a child, he'd forced me always to wear sunglasses because the what do you call it? The rays, the rays,
the UV rays,
the UV rays from the sun is really, really powerful in New Zealand. It's really dangerous for your eyes. And he'd like always tell me to buy really big sunglasses so that I was covered from all sides on my eyes. And then I just remembered that, that as a kid, I went online. I still remember, I was buying my sunglasses at the time from, I think they were called CT wholesalers, an American wholesaling sunglasses. And then I eventually moved to China. Yeah, that's how that started. But I don't remember how I knew to go to Trade Me at the time, but I remember why I chose sunglasses to be like my niche.
Oh, wow. So then you moved to China. So tell me a little bit about what it was like to live in China.
Oh no, I meant to say I moved to sourcing.
Oh, gotcha. Got it. So you moved your business. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. You lived in China.
No, I
got it. So you started sourcing it from China. So you made the pivot to do that. Okay. Yeah. Got it. Okay. So you were doing that. So let's fast forward a little bit to now the Amazon world. So you've been trying different marketplaces and whatnot. What made you decide to sell on Amazon?
Amazon, my journey with Amazon's a strange one. So when I moved to Israel's like known as like high tech, hardcore high tech. A lot of really big businesses come out of this country, yet no one was really buying stuff online. So when I moved here 10 years ago, I was like weird for selling online. I was selling stuff on eBay and all sorts of different places. And then I sold on like the eBay of Israel, which is called like Yad Shtayim, which means secondhand, but it wasn't just secondhand. Anyway, and I was like weird to people who sells online. Like that's only weird people that don't know what to do with their life. And I was like, you guys are idiots. Like you don't even understand what you're missing out on. But when I moved here, although I was spoken to in Hebrew, my Hebrew wasn't very good. It was like my English is my mother tongue. And so I didn't really know what to do with myself here. And I found myself in a strange situation. Anyway, fast forwarding, I had an online store called Lionessa. I sold clothes. I had a clothing store. During that year is when my brother passed away. And I also had a late miscarriage. It was just a tough year.
Yeah.
So the next year, I had a family friend reach out with a wholesaling opportunity to sell on Amazon. And I was like, what? Amazon's where you buy books. And this isn't that long ago. This is like 2016. But like on the other side of the world, like New Zealand and Australia, and even in Israel at the time, Amazon we didn't really know about Amazon. Amazon is where I would go to, like, if I was to look at books at the time. And I was like, you want to sell, the stuff on Amazon? And he basically just needed money. And he, the person that would help to do that would be me, because I understand e-commerce. And because my husband used to have a restaurant. We had money to invest. So we invested. And then by the end of, I can't remember, but by the end of that year, I was like, oh my God, what is this? And, started looking into it. And then I was like, well, I can private label products. And that's how Amazon started. And fast forward to today, we've got 3 brands on Amazon. So yeah.
That's great. So is this 2016 that you started looking into it, if I caught that earlier?
2016 is when, I think it was October or November 2016 is when I put up my first, from my own account, like nothing to do with the wholesaling, my first product on Amazon, which was magnetic eyelashes at the time.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Which I don't mind saying, because I don't sell it anymore. So I don't mind saying I've said it in the past as well.
Right. Okay. Got it. So you're selling magnetic eyelashes, and, I got started in this business was about 2015. I started dabbling in retail arbitrage, and then early 2016, I had my first private label product. So you and I are coming from, pretty much the same time frame. So I remember back then there was a debate: is it too late to get into this now? And sometimes I would listen to podcasts that were maybe even a year or two old at that point. People were having that debate: is it too late to get into it? So, I think most people that listen to this podcast are not necessarily looking to get started. But regardless if someone's listening, looking to get started, or just likes kind of that ever-going debate, where do you stand on today? Is it too late to get started with all the challenges, the competition, shipping costs going up, all that fun stuff?
First of all, no, it's not too late, but nothing can be done the way when we started. Mm-hmm. Everything's different, and it keeps being different. And unless you're super kick-ass and resilient, then, you probably won't make it. You really need to be resilient with Amazon today. And with this business today. You always needed to be, but today even more. I think that if you're going to use old school methods of just like selling random commodity stuff and putting on your logo, then yeah, those days are over. Mm-hmm. I think today, I've been saying this, I always have thought that brand building is the way to go, but it's definitely I'm starting to hear people that were totally with the opposite, I won't mention names, but people that really teach people to just sell random stuff online mm-hmm. are also now talking about brand building. So my opinion is today that niches are the way to go. Mm-hmm. That's one. Two, there are many, many marketplaces when it comes to Amazon. I was just on speaking to Chris and Regina from Australia today that are also part of the industry about Amazon Australia, right? Mm-hmm. Which is like up and coming. It's probably going to be huge in a couple of years. So, but if you wanted to get into it now it's kind of like how when you and I started Amazon, where you could get away with just putting your logo on a product and not differentiating it too much. Mm-hmm. So in some marketplaces, you can get away with that stuff. On Amazon USA, it's not too late. You just have to be the best. You have to really differentiate. You can't do things like, the 2016 podcast we're teaching. That's my opinion. I think that today with the shipping costs, we're filming this in August 2021. Just on the 1st of August, there started to be, surcharges on bringing in, when you bring in containers, some of them are $5,000 more bringing in a container from China. Port congestion surcharges. So I think that today, when you've got a container costing 21, 22, 23K, when it was costing 3 or 4K 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, mm-hmm. You have to be extremely strategic about the types of products you're bringing in. And also the way that we source products for many people may change. Back in the days, manufacturing in the US made no sense. It could mean a lot more sense. It could make a lot more sense today when, cost of shipping and lead time, everything is just so much more dramatic. I don't think that every product can be manufactured in the US, mm-hmm. but I mean that we need to adjust and things need to be different, like done differently today. I can tell you that I've been spending a lot of time looking into US manufacturing, which I'm like totally the go-to China type of person. Right. And I'm teaching myself today about manufacturing in the US. So I think that to answer the question, it's not too late. You just got to do things differently. And if anyone here watched my presentation on your summit, the e-commerce business builders business one. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I spoke there about pricing and about sometimes selling less is actually selling more. So mm-hmm. making more. I think that presentation is even more relevant now than ever, because if today you need a lot of cash flow mm-hmm. to be able to sell online. It's you need to order months in advance with all the lead times going on. You need to pay for $22,000 for a container up front, right? You can't have payment terms on those types of things unless you're making millions and millions a year. You're not going to get that. The shipping companies won't be able to to give everyone payment terms. So you need to pay for that up front. And then on top of that, let's just say if your stock is worth, I don't know, 15K or whatever. So you need a lot more money up front today. And that's why my presentation in your summit is even more crucial, I think, because I show a different way of looking at products today. You don't have to sell, there are many niches. You don't have to sell 70 units a day to make money. You can sell 5 to 10 units a day, times that by a good 5 to 10 products, but make $30, $40, $50 per unit, right? And still kick ass. So yeah, that's a really long answer.
No, I think that's great. And that's such a good point what you just finished with there about, everyone's going into Helium 10, Jungle Scout, whatever their favorite tool is, and they're looking for what's that product that's going to sell big numbers. And I think those big numbers oftentimes, if you watch YouTube ads and someone's trying to sell you a course on, it gets started on Amazon FBA, they're trying to show big flashy numbers. And oftentimes those big flashy numbers, maybe they sell courses, but they're also harder to manage because, especially for someone new to the game, because they may not understand all the underlying things. And to your point, when you're sourcing your next order, you have to do it a lot farther out than you did, even a year ago, just because it's going to take longer. The factory's probably behind. Shipping is going to take longer. Air shipping is almost like you don't even want to look into it. So there's a lot there. And really what it comes down to is you're putting in dollars in the front or whatever the currency is, and you're getting more dollars in the back. And how often can you do that? And so to your point, products that are selling 5 to 10 a day, if you have a portfolio of them, or if they're, higher priced products, whatever that math works out, you could still end up walking away with more money than the person trying to go after the product selling 50 to 100 units a day. But maybe those are lower ticket products, and that's what everyone else is like radar is looking for. So there's going to be a lot more competition there. So that's an excellent point there. And what I do want to dive down a little bit more is the made in the USA. So the rub with made in the USA over the years has always been, it's hard to get people to respond. Because, Alibaba, you go on Alibaba, you say, hey, this is what I want. I mean, I always looked at it when I'm sourcing products is like, I put in like, whatever the criteria is, I reach out to some suppliers. If I reach out to 10, I've probably got at least 8 quotes in the morning when I wake up, because, I'm opposite time frame. So what do you find works with made in the USA suppliers? Like how do you even find them, and how do you get them to respond? Which I'm kind of curious, because I haven't really tried all that hard.
I'm in the period of teaching. I like to learn a lot. I also like to learn from very trusted places. So like, I don't listen to people necessarily like, not that you and I are trusted, we're totally trusted people, but like to influencers in Amazon speaking about sourcing from America. I want to hear from people that are in the supply chain, in sourcing, and in the manufacturing world when it comes to me now learning what manufacturing in the USA looks like. Right. So I have not sourced a product from the US, but I do a lot of coaching, and through my products, my beauty brands, I make in Poland, and my baby brands I make in China. I won't be changing that, but I do a lot of coaching. And throughout my coaching, I see many different types of products. I can tell you that I coach someone who makes a lot of money selling a really big wooden product, which they have made either in their own warehouse in Australia or in China. And shipping just does not make sense now. Now, this is a $140 product that they sell for $140. And I said to them, look, why don't we look into like changing the materials, and we can possibly source this in the US? So for example, if we were to start looking into, I spoke to a sourcing agent in the US, and we started speaking about materials, and he said to me, well, why don't we move to composite wood? And there's many, many, many manufacturers in America that are making composite wood decking and things like that. So he's reached out to them to make this type of product. It's all about, if you understand product development, which not everyone listening to this podcast necessarily does. Some people aren't product developers. They're more
Marketers.
sellers mentality as well. You know,
Mhm.
there's a difference between being a product developer and actually developing products than to just buy this mug and put your logo on it. Right? There's a different, in my opinion, there's a difference between the two. And product development is totally my thing. So anyway, to answer your question, what I've been doing is I've been going to YouTube. This is a hack that probably a lot of people will listen and then start pretending that it's theirs. So
Okay,
I
go
heard
ahead.
it first here. Heard it
Okay,
first
here we go.
Never spoken about this
right
online.
here.
Yeah. I've been going to YouTube and I've been watching a lot of manufacturers' YouTube videos. So in America, there is a lot of Fox, CNN, all sorts of different news places that they're going to US manufacturers and interviewing them. Or you'll go and you'll see actual manufacturers showing you, if you type in injection molding USA, right, you'll find a whole bunch of different actual like factories and manufacturers that are showing you a tour of their factories. So I'm going on LinkedIn, I'm finding these people and I'm approaching them. I've been trying to source a product for a client in Mexico. Where the hell am I supposed to find a manufacturer in Mexico apart from Google? So I went onto YouTube and I started listening to people that are speaking about manufacturing in Mexico. Found a woman that helps manufacturers move their manufacturing from the US to Mexico. And I said, well, if that's what she does for a living, she must know a whole bunch of Mexican factories. I reached out to her on LinkedIn. She answered back, right? So I think that creativity today, thinking outside the box, can really help with that. There is a lot of products that make sense to make in the US, and there's a lot of products that don't. You need to understand the materials of your products. You need to understand many, many different things. And if you don't get an answer, call them. Most of these places have a phone. Like, pick up a phone and actually call them. If you live in America, you live in that area, drive to the factory, to the man, like drive there. Like if you really want to get a hold of them, you will. So if you sound like a newbie, hey, I want to start selling this product on Amazon, they won't answer you. But if you know how to speak, or well, you know how to sound like you know what you're talking about when it comes to your product, you'll probably be able to get an answer.
That's such a good point, because having been in the Fortune 500 world, there's this almost like underlying factor of like, you don't want to deal with people that don't know what they're doing. Even like most of the vendors we worked with when I was in the Fortune 500 world, we're not Fortune 500 companies, but there was a certain level of, you're listening for things like, okay, this person doesn't know what they're talking about, or whatever the case is, or just little things you kind of would hear like, oh, okay, this is something worth listening to. So for example, you wouldn't say, hey, I'm just starting out, or even if you've been selling for 5 years and you say, hey, I sell on Amazon, that's probably be something that's going to click in their head, say, I don't want to deal with this. But you say, hey, I'm a brand builder. I have this brand. We've been around for 5 years. We have a registered trademark with the USPTO. Like we're, registered with the state of Florida, whatever it is. Mention things that just sound credible. And to your point, they may not call you back right away, but pick up the phone. A lot of times in this, online world, we think everything has to be like, this like instant message, or, through a messaging platform, and everything has to be typed. No, voice, just pick up the phone.
Call them, and also find them in different ways. This woman that the Mexican one that I told you that I found through LinkedIn, I had to really do a lot of stalking on Google and stuff to find her last name and eventually find her on LinkedIn in order to reach out to her. So another thing is that like money does talk. So if you're the clients in America, in Australia, in a matter of 7 months have sold almost $2 million worth of sales outside of Amazon. That's not even on Amazon. So now to reach out to like a company like Trex, or someone that makes composite wood products, we can also come and say like, this is our numbers. This is the type of capacity we're looking to. We're looking to work with someone that can pump out 10,000 units a month. then they will answer you back, even if you are only selling on Amazon.
True.
Because money, you know, so if you also have that to show, I think that they'll probably eventually get back to you. But if they don't, I'm a very stubborn person. And if you don't get back to me, I'll find a way to get you to get back to me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good
how you gotta be.
mindset. That's a good mindset. And you know, I go back to the reason I said the whole don't mention Amazon right away, because I know for people in the wholesale world, that tends to be a tactic that they don't bring up Amazon right away. But to your point, like to a manufacturer, as long as you're just saying, hey, here's the units, you know, I'm currently selling X units a month, whatever, that's going to stand out. Because, you know, if you think about, like, they might be selling to some mom and pop store chain with 4 locations. I mean, chances are they're not selling all that much, you know, really in the grand scheme of things. So, you know, a lot of, you know, Amazon business owners are doing a lot more in sales than your average store in a mall, you know, outside of like Macy's. You know, so, you know, the numbers we have probably speak a lot higher volumes than we probably give ourselves credit for, even if it is the 5 to 10 unit a day product, you know, not the 100 unit a day product.
You really need to know, I think you need to know your product really well, and you need to know your materials really well. And you need to make sure that you're also reaching out to the right manufacturers. So I think that that's also important. But like, if I was to now be looking to a company like Trex that makes composite wood decking, and I'm coming to them with like an exercise product that I want them to make out of composite wood, if I can come and show them, well, I'm going to order at least 10,000 units a month from you, it's worth your time. Wherever I sell the product, I don't think that they care, you know?
Right.
But I think that, yeah, I think everything's very dependent on your niche, on the product. And I don't speak to every manufacturer the same way, right? Like I don't even necessarily present myself the same way. It depends on the product. It depends on the materials. It depends on many, many things. So, but yeah, I think that, I think for many products, moving to US manufacturing is going to be more cost effective and cost efficient. And I've never said this before until now, than China. And even like Mexico, I think is going to be the next thing everyone's probably going to start talking about. I'm definitely like learning a lot about manufacturing in Mexico, listening to a lot of different, not people from our space, but people from the supply chain space, just to make sure that I'm getting the right type of information. You know, in our industry, there's a lot of times someone will hear something and then they'll talk about it, and then someone else will hear it, and then like everyone's talking about this thing that isn't even true. So I prefer to hear it from the actual manufacturers or people that have actually moved their manufacturing to Mexico. So yeah, I just think that know your product, know your materials, do your homework on what country apart from China, if it makes sense, right? I don't know a lot of like countries in the world that can pump out toys better than China. So maybe not toys, you know, like it depends on the product. But yeah.
So that's interesting. So with Mexico, that's kind of a whole different ballgame. So China, I think people have kind of learned China kind of understands how to work with American companies. If you are an American company, or it doesn't even have to be American, somewhere in the Westernish world, you probably understand how other Westernish world companies operate, even if they're, you know, manufacturers in Iowa or whatever the case is. You probably have a good understanding of just the general culture of business. I'm sure there's probably some differences in Mexico. Anything you've noticed from what you've, you know, worked on so far with Mexico, and what might be different of how they, you know, operate? Just little, you might phrase things this way, or do you need to do it in Spanish? Do you need a translator?
I have a client that sources a product in Mexico. She found her supplier on Google, reached out to them. I know that with her sourcing, the biggest headache has been the amount of time it's taken, like the lead time the manufacturing process as well. On a customization level for the specific product, they were fine with making. That's also one of the biggest issues you usually have with US manufacturing. Customization is usually a problem, or else in China, they're like, whatever you want, we'll make.
Right.
So with Mexico, I honestly don't yet feel like I have enough experience to give too much information on it. It's me, like I said, like I'm educating myself on these things now because it's so relevant. And I think that this is what entrepreneurship is. When shit happens and when things change, like you don't like lift your hands up, you adjust. Sourcing from China is becoming a headache for many people, for many products. So educate yourself, start learning about your materials, start looking at different countries. Mexico's really good with certain types of materials. The US is really good with certain types of materials. So I think that it just really depends. And when it comes to Mexico, I don't know yet to answer your question. I don't know enough, but I would say that just try, go to Google, go to LinkedIn. I went to LinkedIn and I typed in Mexico manufacturing, right? Just like as a keyword to see what kind of people come up. And then I'm looking at those people. I'm going to YouTube. I'm doing all sorts of different things to try and find the right types of manufacturers. And, I have a lot of clients beyond of just my brand. So I also want to sort of build a little network of people in Mexico, in the US, in other countries, so that I have people to send my clients to. And I've reached out to this sourcing agent, she's not a sourcing agent, I don't really know what to call her, but this woman that helps manufacturers move their manufacturing from the US to Mexico. We spoke English. So I don't know to answer that 100%, but if you need to get a translator or something, get it, it's figure outable, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure it's going to be totally different from sourcing from China. Totally different experience.
But I mean, to your point, just become a student of if you start doing the research and it looks like China might not be the best place anymore for this particular type of product, or it's worth looking into Vietnam or India or Mexico or Cambodia or whatever, I can almost guarantee if you just look up, doing business and such, there's probably 10-hour-long lectures for any country that have been given at Stanford or Harvard Business School or something that's right there on YouTube for you to watch. And you'll probably pick up a lot of really good golden nuggets of information of oh, that's a cultural thing there. Oh, if I knew that, that could save me a little bit of heartache. And you just kind of, to your point, just change the parameters in Google that you're looking for, or in YouTube, and, just become a student and you can find that. And so, if everyone's saying, oh, this is all terrible, well, if everyone's zigging, zag a little bit. So any other kind of, as we wrap up this conversation, ways that you think people might be able to zig when everyone else is zagging, or other way around?
I think 3D printing is something that people don't understand. There's a lot of money in 3D printing as well. Not every single product that you source, okay, wait, let me think about how to put this. We're all different. The people listening to this podcast, every single person is different. They've got different goals. For some people, they would just really love to make $3,000-$4,000 a month and they're really, really happy, right? I know people that are 3D printing their own products. They've turned one of their rooms in their house into a 3D printing farm, six different 3D printers, and they're 3D printing things, certain very specific types of products, and they're selling it on Amazon, right? I have another person that I know that's doing the same thing and he's selling on Etsy. So I think that 3D printing is also something to look into as well. I just think that this is such an exciting time to be in entrepreneurship and to be in e-commerce. And you don't have to do what everyone else says to do. You don't have to go to Helium 10 and to find products. You can also use other methods that are not related to software, right? You can look for problems and then find solutions for them. Just make sure, obviously, that the keywords are there. So I think that 3D printing is definitely, something that some people should be looking into as well. That doesn't require a manufacturer. That's something that if you have the ability to do, you can also do from your own home, which some people do have the ability, right? Some people, you look like you have like a little warehouse in the background. You could have
Right,
probably
exactly.
you could probably have bought a 3D printer and, spend time learning this and started a 3D printing 24/7 somewhere a corner in your house. And, I don't know, paid a 15-year-old to put all the packaging together and send that to Amazon. 3D printing some products, it's like costing you like 60 cents. You're making, a lot of money from that on Amazon. So I think that's another thing to look into. Won't make sense for everyone, will make sense to some people. Just there's always a way,
Yeah.
That's what life has taught me. There's always a way to make money when it comes to physical products. And you just may need to change your niches. You may need to adjust, and you may need to change the way you manufacture. That you may, the client that I told you that we're trying to look into composite wood, they've moved all their manufacturing from China now to Australia, and they bought a warehouse and they're doing it themselves until we're able to, until you have a mold and move all the samples and stuff. It's going to take at least 6 months, what we're going to be doing in the US. So everything's like figure outable. And I think 3D printing is definitely, something else to look into as well.
Yeah. I mean, really, when you think about it, a lot of what everyone's trying to do is go after that product that's sub 10,000, 15,000, whatever BSR in that category that they've decided is kind of the magical number. But there are literally millions of products in every category. And if you can figure out a way to, go after the ones that maybe aren't necessarily the highest sellers, you're probably gonna have a lot less competition. You probably don't have to do a bunch of giveaways when you launch. And to your point, like the 3D printer strategy, I think that's brilliant too, because if you have a product that, let's say you can create this whole catalog of products where, you just send in 2 or 3 to test it out, and, you start getting sales, and then you can do a lot more testing to figure out what works and what people actually buy, than having to buy 1,000 units in a container and hope and pray that that was a winning product. So there's lots of ways to do this, and I agree with you. Now is a very exciting time to be in this business. As there's changes, there's always opportunity.
That's that's it. As this changes, there's always opportunity. I'm going to steal that from you. It's a good one.
You can feel free to trademark it if you would like too.
It's a good one. It's a good one. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if somebody wanted to learn more about you or follow you, where would they go?
I have a YouTube channel called Sharon Even. I actually have an in-depth product research and sourcing course where I teach everything that I spoke to you about today as well. I'm a co-host on the Seller Sessions podcast as well. And they can just find me on Facebook, Sharon Even. Oh, and I have a Facebook group that was voted the 4th best Amazon Facebook group as well. Amazon FBA Alphas.
All right. So we will link to all of that down below. Or actually, if just check the show notes, you'll get it. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I should say it's in the description down below. But if you're listening to the audio version in your favorite podcast player, you'll have links to all of that in the show notes. So this was an interesting conversation. Really enjoyed it, and it's got my mind thinking about some different ways to look at some of the changes and to adapt to them. So really appreciate this, Sharon.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.